The Nets asking price for Cam Johnson has been revealed. And on a related note, why trades don't get done in November. I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you subscribe right here to our fast-growing channel. We are pushing towards 10,000 subscribers. Can't believe that we're almost there. Do us a favor, hit that subscribe button. All right, so according to Evan Sidery, the Nets asking price for Cam Johnson is going to be, he said, very strong, very high, I believe. Will take multiple first-round picks or an enticing young prospect alongside draft capital for Brooklyn to listen on a Cam Johnson trade. One thing, preface this by saying, not all first-round picks are created equal. And so that's something we have to remember. We tend to think of the upper limit of first-round picks value. We tend to think of unprotected first-round picks, but there is a wide range of values for first-round picks. You've got unprotected first-round picks for a bad team. That's extremely valuable. And then you've got a heavily protected first-round pick, say, for a good team that is most likely going to become second rounders at some point because it's not going to convey due to protections, things like that. So first-round picks are not created equal. There's a wide range of values for them, but still multiple first-round picks. The response to this was shock, I think, from most fans around the NBA. Now, that's not to say that Cam Johnson is a bad player at all, but it is a high asking price. But this is also not abnormal for this time of year. This time of year, you get a lot of people from fans of teams that are going to be in a buyer's position out there on the trade market asking, well, why don't we just make a trade now? Well, in part because prices are so high. You've got a lot of teams right now that are still evaluating what they are and what they aren't and figuring out exactly what position are they going to be in at the trade deadline. Are they going to be a buyer? Are they going to be a seller? Who is it they're willing to part with? What is it they're trying to do? A lot of them are still in that evaluation phase right now. But even the ones that are in a sell mode currently, and I think the Brooklyn Nets, if they're not already there, are about to be there. But they've got a bunch of time. So why not? If you feel like, hey, no matter what, our floor is we're going to get a first for Cam Johnson and not take back bad salary. Let's say that's the floor of a trade for Cam Johnson. Well, you could probably get that on deadline day on February 6th, just as well as you could get it right now. So why take that right now? Why not see? Who knows? Maybe somebody will give you the 2 firsts that you're asking for right now. And if not, you can always lower the price towards the end of January, that first week of February, and off you go. There's your trade if you so choose. So when I see fans of teams that are going to be in the buyer's position saying, why isn't my team making a trade right now? Well, number one, a lot of teams aren't ready to trade. And those that are, they're asking the world to the point where if your team did this trade, you'd probably be upset with them. You would say they overpaid, depending on exactly what those first round picks look like. And that said, I think the Nets are in a really good position here. I talk a lot about them because I really like what they've done with their future. I like the Mikal Bridges trade. I thought that was fantastic. Did that set the bar too high? Maybe. Getting those 5 firsts for Bridges. I tend to fall back on Rudy Gobert, though, right? We had the exact same fear when the Timberwolves clearly overpaid to get Rudy Gobert. And I still think they overpaid, even if it's not quite as bad as it first looked. I still think they overpaid to get Rudy Gobert. The fear was, oh my gosh, they just ruined the market. Nobody's going to be able to make any trades anymore because everybody's going to use that now as their jumping off point and no teams are going to pay. Well, no, that ended up being teams correctly pointed to that and said that was an outlier trade. I think the Mikal Bridges trade will also be an outlier. If you're looking at it from that perspective, if that turns out to not be an outlier, then 2 first round picks is very reasonable for Cam Johnson. You look at the contract that he's got. Again, though, I do think that's going to be seen as an outlier. I don't think that's going to be prohibitive of deals getting done because, again, that was, admittedly, it was an overpay on the part of the Knicks, but they felt like he was going to be the final piece of or the next to final piece, I suppose, since they went and got Karl Anthony Towns, of what they believe will be a championship caliber team. But you look at the Nets, and the situation they're in with Cam Johnson is actually a really good one, and this is why their asking price for him may not come down that much. You look at the salary, $23.6 million this season, $21.5 million season after, and then back to $23.6. So it dips down for a season there. We do have to remember, too, with Cam Johnson, he has unlikely bonuses in his contract that will become part of a trade package valuation. So you'd have to actually stack up about 27. You have to account for him as being about $27 million in salaries. So that might complicate a trade for him anyway. But he's 28 years old. 28 years old, and you look what he's doing right now. Look what he's doing for the Brooklyn Nets, who have been better than I think any of us really would have expected. They were expected to be one of the worst teams in the NBA. But you look at what he's doing, 18 points per game, 4.3 boards. You look at the shooting, the three-point percentage, magnificent, 42% from three on 7.6 attempts per game. I mean, if you're the Nets and you want 2 first-round picks, you're just like highlighting that 15 times on a paper and sending it over to every team that wants to trade for him. 49% from the field. So he's shooting lights out. He's giving you what you need there. He's scoring the basketball. And at 28 years old, even if the right deal doesn't come along, the right deal does not come along, well, that's okay. You can wait till next year. You can trade him over the summer if you want. If you really believe that this is going to be a longer-term rebuild for the Brooklyn Nets, it's not out of the question for Cam Johnson to still be around once that Nets squad is ready to actually make that push into contention. Because let's face it, they're probably a few years away from really having something that can push for a title. Again, I think they might be a playoff team as is. Like that may be the case in the Eastern Conference because they've been a lot better than anybody expected. Right now, if the playoffs were to start, they would be the 8th seed. They would be in the play-in. The East, who's going to catch them? I mean, maybe Philly gets going, but look at that. I mean, just by being in the lower third, I'm blocking Philly, right? That's how low the 76ers are. God, what a disaster of a season for them. But the Brooklyn Nets right now, I mean, if the playoffs were to start today, they would be in it. So they could argue that maybe they're a playoff team now. I don't know that that's best for their long-term future, but you could certainly argue that. And then if they are ready to make something of a push, I think Cam Johnson would be a very valuable player. Let's say they, in a best case scenario, they luck into some draft lottery odds here and they get one of the top players in this year's draft class. There's going to be a lot of teams hoping for that with the strength of this year's draft class. And then Cameron Johnson may still be there. Maybe in a year, 2 years, something like that. They're ready to really make a push. And Cam Johnson could still be on the roster. That's not impossible. So where I see the Nets, and I think the Nets are going to be a very strong seller. Cam Johnson is a guy that they can convincingly argue they think will be part of their future and can still be around. 28 years old. It's a little on the old end, means he'll probably be past his prime once the Nets are ready to really go for it. But it's close enough to where I think you could talk yourself into it and reasonably put that message out to other teams that, hey, we don't really have to trade this guy. We don't feel like we really want to trade this guy. So you'd better come with your best offer and you'd better give us those multiple picks that we're asking for. And honestly, I think if the Nets stay on the 2 first thing, unless it's 2 kind of fake firsts, or lower value first, he probably doesn't wind up getting moved. Same situation with Nick Claxton. Like they will listen to offers for him, 25-year-old center, but they don't have to move him. He can be part of their future. On the flip side, though, you look at the Nets, Bogdanovich, Dorian Finney-Smith, Dennis Schroeder, all 3 of those guys should be gone at the trade deadline. You should move off of all 3 of them because none of them are going to be part of your team once you start really winning. Dennis Schroeder's 31. Finney-Smith is 31, has a player option next year. Schroeder is a free agent next year. And then Bogdanovich, he's got to get on the floor, but he's an expiring contract as well. All 3 of those guys, if you can find takers for them, you can find the right deal, they should move on from them. Ben Simmons as well, expiring contract. If they really commit to the rebuild here, you could absorb a lot of bad salary. Not that there's as much bad salary as there used to be out there in the NBA right now, but you could absorb a lot of bad salary with Ben Simmons, that expiring deal, and get some pretty nice assets, I think, for absorbing that salary for next season, say, something like that, using that $40 million expiring contract for Ben Simmons. And then Cam Thomas, if they really decide, I love Cam Thomas, but if they really decide we don't want to be the team to pay him on his next contract, that's fine. I think there will be plenty of suitors for him and that would love to have him as a restricted free agent. So even if I think Cam Johnson is the guy a lot of teams are going to call for, I think he's going to be, out of everybody on this roster, aside from perhaps Nick Claxton, given how center needy a number of teams are, but I do think Cam Johnson's going to be a frequent conversation with teams. But I don't know if that price if it really stays at 2 first. It's a high asking price. I understand why they're there. But if I'm the Nets, I also don't feel pressured to make any move with him right now. like I would with a handful of other guys. And I wonder how many of the Cam Johnson conversations are going to pivot from Cam Johnson into a Dorian Finney-Smith conversation, similar to the way that the Sacramento Kings, in their conversations with the Chicago Bulls over the summer, they talked Zach LaVine trade first, couldn't see eye to eye there, and so that pivoted into a DeMar DeRozan deal with Chicago. So I do wonder if we see something like that play out, where teams are calling for Cam Johnson and then kind of, no, this isn't going to work out. We're not seeing eye to eye on value here. And let's talk DFS. Let's talk Dorian Finney-Smith. So something to keep an eye on. I think the Nets are a really fascinating team here at the trade deadline, but interesting, or at, as we get closer to that February 6th trade deadline, still have a little ways to go. But I do think it's interesting that their asking price is already getting out there, that we're talking multiple firsts. I mean, I'm assuming it's 2 firsts, but multiple first-round picks could mean they even want 3, or a young prospect that's enticing, plus draft capital for the Brooklyn Nets. I don't fault them for setting a high asking price, but if you're wondering why your team's not making a trade right now, there you have it. Because, again, this is not unique. This is what teams tend to do at this stage of the season that are in sell mode or are going to be in sell mode. They set a very high asking price, figuring they can always come down as we get closer to the trade deadline. Remember, deadlines create action. All right, everybody, give me your thoughts in the comments down below. Are the Nets insane to ask for multiple first-round picks for Cam Johnson, or is this actually a smart strategy? Let me know what you think about the Nets and the rumored asking price here for Cam Johnson. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and go check out our latest video on Zach LaVine and how he responded to a heckler that was suggesting he should get traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. Let me know your thoughts on that one as well. Check out that video right now.